unaware of this. Not the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So it was written in the context of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. The rabbi who wrote it was in the time there was a tremendous renaissance amongst the Jewish people. So many Jews were simply unaware of the halachas and the different things. So he wrote it. It's just interesting to see that, to note that. So he goes to the laws of Kaddish, and we'll get there eventually. But I remember a couple years ago I was reviewing this, and I said, oh, this is very interesting. So so he mentions, the whole discussion if women should say Kaddish, which is an interesting discussion. He's of the opinion that they shouldn't. He quotes an opinion that says they could if they'd like. Then he goes through and he says, if there's no minyan, you do it the days right after or the day before, he says. So you did. And he actually doesn't bring the day before, but I believe the source that he says the day after, the source is actually the day, well, the source is the days next to it. Then he finishes off, and I feel like this is what is very interesting. Now, in his time, there were a lot of people that would Kaddish is something very emotional. But in Jewish law, it's not. Because Jewish law is not very emotional. It's very, letter of the law. So the source of Kaddish is in the Zohar. It says that Rabbi Akiva had this vision or something in heaven, and there was this guy who every day would collect wood and burn it with himself in it. That was like his heavenly punishment. And he would burn, and he was charred, and Rabbi Akiva was disturbed. So he asked him, he said, what happened? He said, well, I wasn't a very good Jew. So he said, well, what could I do to fix it? He said, find my son, teach him Hebrew, and have him say Kaddish for me. So he found his son, he taught him Hebrew, he said Kaddish for him. He became a rabbi. His son became a rabbi. He was not observant at all. He became a rabbi, and his father was now vindicated. He went to heaven. So the fact that the story comes about that way, the rabbis draw a lot of lessons from it. So, in other words, that is the origin of Kaddish. That's where the words of Kaddish come from and everything like that. So I just found it interesting. He says, even though Kaddish and praying and leading prayers, so that's another tradition, the person as a yard is ideally supposed to lead the prayers, helps the souls of the departed. Nevertheless, that's not the main way to help them. That's what he says. That's not the main way. Now you'll see, in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, he doesn't go into the how he understands things, because he's trying to be concise. So that's not the main thing. The main thing is that his children should follow the straight path, because that's the best way of providing merit for their parents. And he quotes the Zohar. So it says, Ben Chabad of, a son must honor his father. Just like it says he has to honor his father, he has to give him food and drink and all those things in his life. Also, what about when he passed away? If she suggests he's absolved, it's not so. That even though his father has died, he has to honor him even more. As it says, honor your father, and if the son goes in a sinful path, he's for sure going to be disgracing his father. So, and certainly he'll cause his father in heaven embarrassment. And if he goes in the proper way, for sure he will honor his father. Indeed, it accords him honor in this world among people. And it accords him honor in the next world before the Holy One, blessed be He. The Holy One, blessed be He, then has mercy on the father, and he puts him in an honorable seat. And that's what the Zohar says. So the Zohar actually says, it's interesting. It says say Kaddish, and then it says, and what happened? The son didn't just say Kaddish; he became Orthodox and he became a rabbi. So the Zohar says, so that's why he says the main thing is not the Kaddish. The main thing is becoming more observant. So therefore he says, therefore it's appropriate for a person to instruct his children before he's died, to strengthen certain mitzvahs. And if they do that, it'll have greater significance than the Kaddish. And this is an excellent manner of earning merit. Even someone who doesn't have sons and daughters, he can tell people to do it for him. So that's why, he says earlier, on the day of a yard site. And so actually, it's very interesting, because based on the Zohar, the main thing is the mitzvahs. Because if you're looking at the story, his father got a good seat, but then the Zohar finishes, and not only that, his son became a respectable Jew. So that's what the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says. So therefore, on the day of a yard site, it's a special day to do mitzvahs in honor. There are specific mitzvahs that people do. He says earlier in the same chapter to learn Mishnah. Because Mishnah has the same letters as Neshama. And not only learn Mishnah, but people, very, very strong tradition, to learn Mishnahs that start with the name. So let's say you'll have, her name is very, very long, but let's say you'll have the name Chana. So you learn a Mishnah which starts with the letter Ches, a Mishnah that starts with the letter, well, a chapter. Ideally it's a chapter, and it takes a long time, by the way, because a chapter is long. A chapter that starts with a Ches, a chapter that starts with a Nun, and a chapter that starts with a Hey. When people can't do that much, at least they try and do one Mishnah that starts one Mishnah that starts with each letter, or one chapter, just the first letter of the name and stuff like that. So those are mitzvahs. Tzedakah on the extra day even is just dedicated to the person. A tzedakah could be even a couple, something small to give tzedakah. Of course, Hasidim would always do the yahrzeits of the Rebbes. They would also always give extra tzedakah to his institutions, to the Rebbe's institutions, whatever Rebbe, and they would learn the Mishnah, and in general to learn, be a better Jew. So I feel like when he was writing this, there were a lot of Jews who would just come in Yom Kippur on the yard side and say Kaddish, and the author of Shlomo Gansfried, he felt that was perverse. In other words, better come to shul every day except the yard site, because I feel like in his time, the emotional things related to our parents were very strong, and people would feel like, okay, if I come in Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and the yard site, and still today people do that, then that's enough. And he was saying, no, the main thing is people should look and say, wow, in heaven they should look down and say, look at your son. So anyways, that's just something I found interesting.
People say that Kaddish is a memorial.
So Kaddish is...
very strong.
Yes, Mendel is very into that.
Very strong that it's not a
So
memorial.
Yizkar is a memorial. Yizkar is a memorial. Now Yizkar is not the prayer. It's really the tzedakah. Which is interesting during COVID. So people would like to do Yizkar with the Torah, but during COVID people weren't able to do Yizkar with the Torah. So a lot of rabbis said, hey, 1 second, Yizkar is just a memorial tzedakah. Kaddish actually elevates the soul. So that's why now, for Kaddish, a lot of people, what they do is they pay an institution to say Kaddish in case they miss it. Believe it or not, even the Rebbe, who could pull a minyan any second, would pay an institution to say Kaddish for, hey, David, good morning. What a surprise, Sunday.
How did you come?
How are you? Good.
I'm actually glad you came, David. We didn't have a minyan today because yesterday I announced it and nobody was able to come. But I'm happy you came because you'll see the Rambam today is actually the chapter about guns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this
Well,
is...
Ivy's coming.
Oh!
We wanted to be here for you and Nancy.
Well,
yesterday I announced it.
I know.
Now, if I could got 5 yeses, then I could get 5 other people to come who weren't here yesterday.
Oh.
But I didn't get any yeses, so...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I needed to discuss things with
Yeah.
my social director,
No, I understood. Okay, I understand. Okay.
Well,
Well, anyways, so let's...
Maybe we'll have a breakfast.
Nancy
Yeah.
didn't come.
Well, I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get a minion for today.
Well, so I knew that on Shabbos, I had a hard time getting a minyan yesterday. People don't know. Well, Friday is always a big job getting people to come. In other words, if I won't call people, then we won't have a minyan on Shabbos. That's just the way it works. I still have to call people and everything like that and find out who's coming, who's in town, who's not in town. Most people don't offer information, they just don't show. So, anyways, this week I was like, okay, if we can get 5 or 6 people yesterday,
Which volume is
this is number 1.
this? Oh, it's a number one?
Number 1. If we can get 5 or 6 people, then I can get, there's plenty of Jewish men. In fact, there were quite a few Jews who came on Thursday. In fact, it was even a majority Jews, which is pretty impressive. Because, you never know it. There were Gentiles as well. But there's a lot of people who will come for a yahrzeit. But it's hard to get 9 people, 10 people,
Right.
I can get 5 people.
So we're not going to have the yurt site then?
No, the yahrzeit's today. We're going to
Okay.
study Torah and honor the yahrzeit. We were just talking about it.
What time is it going to be?
Right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Very high level guilt thing. So he was saying there, he says, you can do it and everything like that. Even more important is to honor your parents even after they're deceased. And the way you honor them can be done every day. It's by actually, according to the Zohar, honoring your parents is something you have to think about. In other words, it's not just they're just like when they're alive, you have to provide them with food and drink or whatever it is that the Torah mandates. You have to call them up. Also, after they die, you're never a Jewish person is never absolved from honoring his father and mother, even after they die. Okay.
What section was that?
So I'll just point
I have
out,
volume 1. And
it's a little confusing because it's in the laws of prayer. So it's number 15. Sorry. No. Well, one second. No. Chapter 26, page 285.
Chapter 26?
Chapter 26. So that goes through the significance of Kaddish.
Sorry.
I'll study that with Nancy.
Yeah, that goes through the significance of Kaddish. It's 22 halachas. So keep in mind, a lot of them are about Shiva. Shiva, there's Shiva, Shloshim, the year, Yartzeit. A lot of them are about shuls with battle. Who gets to lead the prayers? Because, hey, I'm sitting Shiva, you have a Yartzeit. Or let's say I'm sitting Shiva, but I come here every day. Yartzeit gets precedence because it's once a year, but you never come here. You come here once a year. I'm here every day. So a lot of it is about that.
Yeah.
That's relevant in big communities. In 770, someone who has a Yartzeit will gather his own minion on the side. However, I just heard a story that there was a guy who really, in 1988, the Rebbe was saying Kaddish for his wife. And so he was davening, and it was always, those years were very precious to hear the Rebbe davening. The Rebbe had a special way of davening. You could listen to the recordings, very powerful. And the Rebbe davened very quickly, but you could just hear that he was very present in the words. There was something special about it. So one guy, his dad died, and he was the only son. So he asked the rabbi, the rabbinical court, he said, can I not lead the prayers this year? Because I want to daven with the Rebbe. And they said yes. So that was like the one exception. He didn't make his own minyan. He davened with the Rebbe. Of course, he would say Kaddish. But I do feel it's important to remember that, because a lot of times people value Kaddish, Yizkor, all these things were all implemented, so you should change your whole life. All these things were implemented, so you should live on a different plane. You should realize that there's souls and parents and everything like that.
Not to come once a year.
Yeah, and what happened was, essentially, is people started coming like once a year, say Kaddish, or pay someone to say Kaddish and everything like that, which are good, which are mitzvahs, which are, I don't want to belittle those, but those are not, as he says, those aren't the main thing.
Kaddish is
Well,
not
that
a
would be-
memorial. It's just
Mendel's
basic
into this,
level
yeah.
higher.
That would be one thing, is to learn
That's my point.
to daven from the Amud, to be able to do that.
Yes, that's that you get priority for that. I actually remember my father as a kid had a Yartzeit, and someone else was sitting Shiva, and I believe the guy sitting Shiva, the guy who leads it. But if it's Shloshim or during the year, the guy, these are all code of Jewish law. Okay. Anyways, that's that. Well, so it's yesterday I announced anyone able to come tomorrow morning. Now one person said yes. Now if 5 people would say yes, I can bring another 5 who weren't here yesterday, but I can't bring 8. It's just I can't imagine it. Also because it's Saturday night, to text people Saturday night tomorrow morning.
Maybe we should
But-
try
I'm
bringing
sorry I
like
didn't say anything.
Oh, no
but,
worries.
Maybe
Well,
we
look.
should-
Be here
maybe
for
we
you,
should try
so.
bringing-
Well, I told Nancy
so
not
did
to
I.
come because we didn't have a menu.
Well, look at the bright side. The bright side is
But thank you for coming.
the bright side is that we got to learn that Jewish law, and maybe we'll change some lives here, right? Maybe we'll change some
Well,
lives.
some of us have a lot of work to do, so.
Yeah, well, so
Every little bit
Some
matters.
people will do a lot of work.
so like I'll give you an example. I'm actually going to New York next Monday. I'm speaking for an organization called Release
Excuse me.
Time.
When you say next Monday, are you
This
talking
is coming
tomorrow?
Monday. No. Next
A week from Monday.
A week from Monday.
Labor
okay.
Day.
Thank you.
So there's this organization, and
I'll
it's
be
called Release Time in New York, and they asked me to speak there. So it's an organization that takes kids out of public school 1 day a week for an hour, and it's a law in New York, and teaches them. It's a phenomenal organization. I mean, these are kids during school. They get to leave school, and it's a law also in Arizona. They can leave school and go to a program. So what's interesting is who instituted this law. Well, it was instituted by priests in the 30s, and it's been fought ever since, every few years. But the one who started the Release Time in the biggest form of release time is Jewish, and it was started by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. So every year on his yard site, they make a big fundraiser, because when he passed away, the Rebbe said on his yard site, souls never go. So in his yard site, you have to donate to his institutions. Now this is one of the institutions he started that's still going. There's many, but this is one that's still going. So they make their big fundraisers on that day every year, and everyone donates. I myself included. I always try and donate to that institution, because this is both an institution which I was part of. It's the yeshiva student taking the kids out, but it was started in the 40s by the previous Rebbe when he came to America in like 1942, and it's still going. So anyways, that's okay. Let's go.
Well, thank you for the children.
Yeah, sure. Well, one thing that is underrated, this is the second biggest bestseller in Jewish history. You know that? The first biggest bestseller is the Bible. The Talmud was never made as a great bestseller. It may have changed since, but when this book came out here, there were so many Jews who were in the process of assimilating in the 1800s that it was printed again and again. The Code of Jewish Law, we studied on Tuesdays, again and again and again.
No, Mondays.
Mondays, yeah. Again and again and again and again it was printed, because Jewish people were like, this is the single most simple book on how to be a Jew. Because the Bible won't tell you that. The Bible won't tell you how to be a Jew, but the Code of Jewish Law will tell you, you put your mezuzah up here, that way, this way, you say Kaddish that way, so.
When you say the Bible, do you mean
The Torah. The Torah.
Okay. It's just weird to hear you say the Bible and not
The reason why I'm
Torah.
saying that is because, the Bible is the most sold book of any religion in the
Not
world.
the Torah, the Bible.
Not only amongst Jews, but yeah, Jewish people always
because
wanted
they
a Torah.
copied it from us.
Not every Jewish person was able to afford the Tanakh, The Talmud, not every Jewish person was able to decipher. Now it's in English, but it wasn't always in English and Hebrew. And then this book here is the Code of Jewish Law. It tells you this is how you wake up and you say Shema and you put your hand over your eyes like this, and this is the book that says it.
It's the rule book for your life.
Yes. Okay, let's go. So anything, kol kli milchama, anything which is used, these are the laws. And do you want to show Ivy how to find it online? You can text it to her. Anything which is used for war, any tools which are used for war, you can't go out on Shabbos. You can't use them on Shabbos. You can't go out with them. So this is guns, knives, swords. Chapter 19.
No, I have to be to work at 10
I'm always
o'clock.
a day off on Sunday.
Because Shabbos, yes. So yesterday is an interesting one. I did it with Mendel yesterday. It's a very yesterday's an interesting one. But any vessel which is for war, you can't go out on Shabbos. And if you go out, if you can wear them, for example, it's a shield or a hat or anything like that, then you're exempt. You're not liable. So if you wear out a sword or what do you call the thing when a sword goes into?
A sheath.
A sheath, right? So then you're exempt. So you're not allowed to, but if you do, then you're exempt. But if you go out with things which are not derech malbush, not things that you wear, for example, a bow and arrow, whatever it is, a shield, you hold the shield, right? You don't really wear it, then you are liable on carrying on Shabbos. Okay, so now keep in mind if it is derech malbush, if you are wearing it, the Rambam says you're exempt, right? You're exempt, so it's not biblically forbidden. Okay, you can't go out with a
Nailed sandal.
nailed sandal, which is nailed strong, even on the holidays,
What's a nail sandal?
because they're war. You're going out on Shabbos. I think it's some kind of war thing. You can go out with a belt which has silver and gold, like kings do, because this is like jewelry. And this is so as long as it's not tied on loosely. Because if it will fall, you're not allowed to carry it, right? So the same thing with jewelry. If jewelry can fall down on Shabbos, you're not allowed to wear it. And I'll just tell you, same thing with, we'll see different things, okay. A ring which has a seal, right? So, you seal a ring with wax or you seal with ink. That is a thing that a man can wear, but a woman can't wear it. That is male jewelry. So women jewelry, if you're wearing something that you're not meant to wear, it's considered carrying. So that's why a key, we spoke about a key. If you have a key on a necklace, that's not allowed. If you have a key on a belt, and
The key on the belt is allowed?
a key on a certain type of belt.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen Paul.
Yes, so a key on a
On
certain type of
Shabbos.
belt. The idea of that belt is,
I pay attention.
the idea of that belt is if you would, there's two hooks. I bought that from him in New York. There's two hooks, or you're tying in both ties into the key. So the key is essential for that belt. If you would take the key out, there would be no belt. But if you would just stick the belt through, that wouldn't be allowed. That would be carrying on Shabbos. Okay. Now, let's say there's no seal. That's a woman thing. So a man can't really wear a ring on Shabbos. Now, these things change over time. You know, if a guy's wearing a wedding ring, it might be different because back then in Jewish law, there's no place for male wedding rings. There's no context for it. If it's the style for men to wear rings, then that could change. Therefore, a lady that goes with a ring which has a lady goes with a ring which has a seal, and a male that goes with one that doesn't have a seal, they're both liable. And why are they liable? They didn't carry them properly, because a man doesn't carry a ring like that. A lady doesn't wear a ring like that, because sometimes a male gives a woman his ring and says, "Hey, put this in the house. Put my ring in the house." And he puts them on his. She goes and puts it on his finger. And similarly, a lady sometimes puts it on his finger. A male puts his wife's ring on his finger to hold it. I sometimes, when my wife washes her hands, she'll give me her rings. Now, what do I do not to lose them? I put them on my finger, right, in order not to lose them. So it's possible that, yes, a male, if he's carrying a woman's ring, he will wear it, right? So therefore, you are liable.
Meaning you will be punished.
You'll be punished, yeah. You're either punished or you get a sacrifice. Have to give a sacrifice. You do it by accident. A lady cannot go out with a ring which doesn't have... okay.
A woman
A
gives
lady
her-
can...
sorry.
What, number 4?
You're down to 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lady cannot go out with a ring which doesn't have a seal, even though it's from her jewelry. Maybe she'll take it off to show it to her friends, just like people do. But if she does, she's exempt. But a man can go out with a ring which has a seal, because this is the way you wear it, and you don't show it to people. And therefore, people do not go out with rings at all. This is the Rambam's opinion. Women do go out with rings. A lady that goes out with a needle which has a hole in it, she's liable, and a man is exempt. And a man can go out with now we're talking about, again, when you're not holding the needle, it's like stuck into, if a man goes out with it, a needle which doesn't have a hole, he's liable, and the lady's exempt, because this could be jewelry and it's not forbidden. We're just worried maybe she'll fall to his friend. This is a general rule. Anyone who goes out something which is not jewelry and it's not the way of wearing it, and he takes it out the way you take out something, you're liable. And if you go out something with his jewelry and it's loose and it's possible to fall, and similarly she goes out with jewelry that's it's possible for her to take off and show it to her friends, you are exempt, but you shouldn't do it. And anything which will not fall and you don't show it, then you are permitted. And therefore,
Well, you shouldn't go outside with rings in it.
that's what the Rambam says. And therefore, a belt, I guess, some kind of strap that you put on your arm, or that you can go out with Shabbos, and that is that it's so long it is tight and it won't fall off. So if you have jewelry that's going to fall off, you shouldn't go out Shabbos. If it's something that you take off and show people, you
A
shouldn't.
bracelet.
You
an
know, a
arm
bracelet,
and
yeah. Something which is something you don't take off, then you can leave it. Okay. Now, a lady should not go out with strings of wool or linen, or with straps which she ties onto her head. Maybe she'll take them off when she goes to dip into the mikvah, and she'll carry them, and not with a like crown that you
It says diadem, which I...
diadem. I think it's like basically a crown that hangs down onto your forehead, and not with a type of belt that goes down over her legs when they're not tied, and not with a crown which you put on your head, and not with different things that women go out put on around their feet in order they shouldn't take a big step. All these things are forbidden. Maybe you'll fall and you'll bring them. So these are different jewelry things that aren't connected well, that you are conscious of, and maybe they'll fall, and we're worried that if you go out your fall and it's a $20,000 crown, you're not going to leave it on the ground, right? So those are, and these are interesting things. A lady, when she goes out, you have to make sure, like if a diamond falls off your ring, which sometimes happens, you're in trouble. You're not allowed to carry on Shabbos. So if it's loose, you shouldn't wear that ring.
I noticed you weren't wearing your crown on Shabbos.
I just told him he can't buy me that tiara that he's...
Yeah, so a lady should not go
You
out.
so much wanted to.
he did.
A lady should not.
You could buy anything. Just
a lady should not go out with I guess it's like a necklace,
Gold choker.
gold choker necklace, a nose ring, or
Bottle of perfume.
a bottle of perfume. I guess that, so in the olden days, perfume worked a little differently. You could spray it on yourself, or you could just have powder that you put on yourself, or you could walk around with a bottle of perfume that just smells, right? So this is on not with a small wallet, a purse, right? That you put in it, oil which smells nice, it's called the kecheles, and not with a wig that you put on your head. In order that she looks like she has a lot of hair, and not with a
False tooth.
false tooth. Well, I didn't get there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not with some kind of
Woolen band.
wool band she puts around herself, a headband, a false tooth, and not with a golden tooth that you put on a black tooth, and not with a silver tooth. But with silver tooth, you're able to. All these things are forbidden to go out. Maybe you'll take them out and show them to your friends.
I didn't know they had gold teeth back then.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's a big thing these days, but.
Yeah. Okay, so anything.
Insurance won't pay for gold.
I know.
Okay, so these are all the laws. So like a wig, right? A wig of a lady, actually. So the Rebbe women spend a lot of money on their wigs, and the Rebbe was of the opinion that every lady should wear a wig outside. Every married lady should wear a wig outside only. They shouldn't wear a covering, only a wig. And the Rebbe said because if you wear a head covering, you'll end up showing a little hair. And it'll be tempting to follow different styles, or you won't be as conscious. But if you cover your hair with a wig, then you won't show any hair. And it has to be a very nice wig. Because if it's not a nice wig, then you won't be excited to wear it. So the Rebbe actually was looking in and he said if you wear a wig, it'll bring a lot of blessings and everything like that. So the wig industry is a used industry. The Rambam here is not talking about a wig, he's talking about more of like extensions. There's certain wigs that you could put half on your head, or a wig which is not stable. Obviously nowadays wigs are made that you won't show any hair, so you won't take it off. So all these things you're worried you're going to take them off and show them to your friend. Anything which is forbidden to go out into a public domain is forbidden to go out even in a courtyard which doesn't have a roof, except with we said this wig that we mentioned before and this headband. You're allowed to go in order that you shouldn't, not be beautiful for your husband. And if you go through the perfume, which doesn't have perfume at all, then you're liable. So if you go out with perfume and it has a smell and you're wearing it and that's the way you wear it, then you're exempt, right? You're not allowed to go out with a bottle of perfume. You're not allowed to hold it, but it's like a certain type of necklace that has a little perfume bottle, whatever it is. But if it's empty, then you're liable because you're literally carrying a bottle for no reason at all. It's not part of the... Okay. A lady can go out with hair which are tied to her head because water will go on them and they don't separate. She doesn't take them off if she goes to mikvah, but we're worried maybe she'll go to mikvah, take them off, and then carry them. But these things, since they're tied to her head, she doesn't need to take them off. Okay, but an older lady shouldn't go with young lady hair, maybe because maybe she'll indeed take them off. But a lady could go with older lady, and anything which is tied, woven, you can go on your head. A lady could go out with strings on her neck because it doesn't choke her, right? So, and it's now a choker goes around your neck tight. So if a lady will go and have to dip into the mikveh on Shabbos, she'll have to take it off. However,
But then she can't carry it.
she can put it back on, right? But we're worried maybe she'll take it off and carry it. However, if it's something which is loose around her neck, then she can go with mikveh in it. Even if she takes it off, we're not worried about her carrying it because she doesn't have to take it off. And if it is dyed, it's forbidden, maybe she'll show it to her friends. And a lady can go out with a
golden tiara,
because only special women go, and those really special women, they usually don't take off, show their friends. Their real friends don't walk in the streets. Okay, she can go out in another type of tiara or necklace when they're tied on her head, in order that they don't fall. And similarly, okay, a lady can go out with a this is like a band-aid.
It says cotton wadding.
cotton
In her
wadding in the
ear.
ear,
In her ear.
and that's as if she's tied a cotton wadding in her sandal, and that's if it's tied to her sandal. A cotton wadding here is like a tampon, even though it's not tied, and even if it has a handle, because if it falls, she's not going to touch it. She's not going to like pick it up and bring it home. She can go out with she can go out with pepper or salt, things that she puts in her mouth for the smell, but she shouldn't put it in on Shabbos. Women could go out, so we said earlier that you can't walk out with food on Shabbos. So now let's say you take Listerine mouthwash, right, and you have it in your mouth. You put in some salt or something in your mouth so your mouth will be fragrant, that you could go out. You can't go out, but you shouldn't go out on Shabbos with it in the first place. But if you're out already, you're not liable. Women could go out with,
Wood slivers in their ears.
I don't know what those are, or whatever they are. Or they can go out with,
Oh,
you have to read these things. I don't know what
Cages
these
that
are.
women put in,
if you have pierced ears,
you can wear
then
earrings.
you would, and you're not wearing your pierced earrings, then they would put these wood
Wooden.
slivers in to keep the holes from closing.
Right.
Okay, so, I'm not sure what these are. I'm not sure what these ornaments are. Number 12, you want to read it?
Let's see.
Yeah, I'll have to-
Bells on their necks or on their clothing with a shawl attached with a fastener which is an unrelated object, not part of the shawl. A woman may, from the outset, fasten the edge of her garment on Shabbos using a stone or a nut as a fastener, and go out into another domain, though she may not use this as a ploy, and use a nut as a fastener to bring it out to her small child.
All right, yeah, I have to study that carefully. But let's go with number 13. A person can go out with a case, some is like a toothpick splinter in his teeth or in his sandals, and if it falls, he can't put it back. However, let's say you have a Band-Aid on top. You can go out with a Band-Aid or a sponge or cotton on top of a wound, as long as you don't tie it on, because the tying is chashuv, and it doesn't help. So if you have a Band-Aid, now Band-Aids are okay, but like ace bandage, it's not fastened really well, it could be problematic, because it could undo, and then you'll carry it. You can go out with, they put a garlic peel or onion peel, or on top of a wound, and you could tie it on Shabbos. These are different types of bandages and remedies.
Question.
Yeah.
You can tie it, but as long as it's not a double knot, correct? It can be a single knot?
We spoke about double knot is technically problematic. You should do like a slip knot.
A slip knot,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. A person could go out with a Evan Takuma. So this is number 14. These are different types of bandages we just mentioned that you can go out with. A lady can go out with a stone, which is
Preservation stone.
a what stone?
They call it a preservation.
Preservation stone, or a weight stone, which is for health. And not only a pregnant lady, but other women, maybe she's pregnant, and so actually, just to point out, I saw once in one of the Rishonim, he said that, okay, you go nowadays, and there's a lot of people who have gems with healing properties. They advertise, take this gem, hang it on yourself with healing properties. I think the women's event in Sedona even had something like that, about gems. Now, is it a real thing? What do you think?
What?
Do gems have healing properties? Well, so
Some people think so.
well, so here's what this ancient rabbi said. He said, in fact, all the stones in the plate of the Kohen Gadol have healing properties. He said, but the thing is in order to get these things to holistically heal, it's not just the stone. You have to access some kind of meditation, which accesses the power in the stone. So he said in the olden days, people did, in fact, in the times of the temple, when people had the Kohen's breastplate, they had healing properties, and people were able to access, kind of go into a metaphysical meditational state. He said the stones themselves don't heal; they're inanimate. But if you can go into that meditation, you can access healing powers in them. They have healing powers, not on their own. You can access the healing powers in them. So he basically, so in Sedona, all these gems, they may traditionally have healing powers, but to my knowledge, not necessarily do people have the Jewish intention of accessing it. They might, I don't know. I'll tell you after a minute, I'll explain after it's long. So here, let's say pregnant women, they would indeed wear a certain stone, which would help them go through their pregnancy. And you can go out with an expert kameah. Now, the Rambam was like a scientific health guy, but he obviously believed in these things. Now, yeah, in Judaism, we do believe also you can have a kameah is like you get like a certain script written and you keep it with you, like a mezuzah almost, and it'll help you. And what is a kameah? This is the one that healed 3 people, or the person who made one to heal 3 people made one for you. And if you go through one, which is just like a regular guy writes it down, you're exempt because you're wearing it for clothing, so to speak, but you're not permitted to do it. And if you go out with tefillin, you're not allowed to go out with tefillin, but if you're wearing tefillin, you're exempt. So that's the interesting subject of kameahs. So in Judaism, we do believe in them. There may be some guys in Jerusalem who are able to write them or able to act. I don't know, there is a Kabbalistic tradition in these holistic things. But we also believe that, most people don't necessarily have that Kabbalistic tradition. So we do find ancient kameahs. The Maharal would write kameahs for people. He would write them for people and have them and save them. Even the Rebbes, the Lubavitcher Rebbes, there were some very slight, they weren't into them, but they did not believe in them. They just believe that you have to pray more and everything like that. People, sometimes if you give them a kameah, they rely on it too much. We know that the snake in the Torah that was made out of bronze, copper snake, if you would gaze at it, you had healing powers. So one of the kings of Israel destroyed it because he said people are serving it as idol. They think the snake's healing them. It's not the snake. God's made a tool to heal people. What the snake is supposed to do is supposed to say, wow, look at the snake guys to make. I better be a better Jew. But in fact, and that's what the Jews indeed did for a couple hundred years. But at a certain point, they started thinking that it was the snake itself. They started serving the snake, making images of the snake and stuff like that. So, okay. Someone who has a...
Can I-
Yeah.
At the end of the paragraph, it says tefillin. So are you permitted to wear tefillin out of the shul on Shabbos? Well, you don't wear tefillin.
We don't wear
on
tefillin on Shabbos.
So
So what we're talking about is, let's say you are traveling or walking, you find tefillin in the street. You're not allowed to wear them, but if you find them in the street, then you can put them on and walk with them. Okay. Or let's say you were wearing tefillin and you're walking somewhere and you ended up walking and the sun set and it's Shabbos and you're still wearing your tefillin.
On Friday afternoon.
On Friday afternoon. So now you can't carry tefillin. You can wear them. You're not allowed to do it in the first place. You're not allowed to set yourself up to do it. But if you're wearing tefillin and you wear tefillin, you're exempt from punishment and from the sacrifice.
Right, but you're still not supposed to do it.
You don't put your tefillin on Shabbos, yeah.
Ivy has to go to work.
No problem. Okay. Someone who has a wound on their foot. So
Thank you for
yeah.
your input.
She came here to support you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Very
I'm
nice.
sorry Nancy didn't come, but we didn't have a minion, and so we couldn't say Kaddish.
We just love
We
it.
I'll
came here
tell
for
her you
guys,
can.
so.
Okay, so here goes. Let's okay. So someone who has a wounded foot. So he has an ingrown toenail. He can only wear one shoe. So he's allowed to only wear one shoe. However, you're not allowed to wear one shoe otherwise. Because it's considered carrying. And now it's exempt, but wearing one shoe is considered carrying. It's not the normal, humans don't wear one shoe.
Really?
A person shouldn't go out with a shoe that's too big for him, but he can go out with a coat that's too big for him. Now it's interesting, in this book I'm reading, Mendel kept pushing me to read, he read, it's about the last survivors of Kovno. Amazing book about this Holocaust survivor. He was a kid. He was 13 years old, real wild troublemaker. But as a result, he was very, very chutzpahdik to the Nazis. And he saved a lot of lives in concentration. He was 13 years old. Anyways, they were in a ghetto, and his dad was very wealthy. And even after he lost everything, he was a very good businessman. He bought his son boots that were way too big. But because he bought those boots for him, he was able to hide his tefillin in them. And he hid his tefillin and a picture of the previous Rebbe. He was a chassid of the previous Rebbe. And a sitter. And in the concentration camp, he had these items for a very long time. He had these items because he got to hide them in his boots. So he said, even though my dad bought me boots and they were so uncomfortable, eventually not only did I get to put tefillin on, but there were other Jews who came and put tefillin on with those very special stories. But anyways, a kid is not allowed to go out with big shoes which are too big. We're not talking about their size 2 taking size 3. We're talking about their size 2 taking size 10. that he's not able to walk in them. A lady shouldn't go out with a loose shoe, and not with a new shoe that she didn't wear before. A lady should not go with a shoe. Now, I remember actually my sisters walking to Shul on Shabbos and getting blisters and new shoes, and they just leave the shoes. They gotta leave the shoes, walk home with no shoes, because you can't carry the shoes on Shabbos, but they couldn't wear them. So I remember them walking home, and then after Shabbos, usually no one takes your shoe from the sidewalk. No one takes your pair of shoes in America. After Shabbos, picking them up. So here the Rambam says you should make sure your shoes are broken into, because if they're not broken into, you might leave them there. You might come to carry it, and even if you don't come to carry it, they might be so uncomfortable that it's as if you're carrying your shoes. What is that?
One may not go out wearing a linen covering. You're in the next paragraph.
No, I'm in
In the same paragraph.
yeah.
An amputee may not go out wearing his prosthetic leg.
Okay, amputee can go as a prosthetic leg. Which now here's the interesting thing also. That might be different nowadays, because back then what was a prosthetic leg? It was a peg. It was wood, right? So it wasn't. Nowadays you can fasten these things on. They can read your nervous system and everything like that.
My nephew has got this computerized leg. First he had it cut off below the knee, and now he's got it cut off above the knee. And they have this computerized leg that he puts on, and it actually kind of walks for him.
So it's an interesting thing, but there's an institution in Israel. It might be a problem to use it for Shabbos, and there's an institution in Israel that like I knew a guy who had an electric wheelchair, and on Shabbos he would switch to a non-electric wheelchair because he couldn't use an electric wheelchair on Shabbos. It's forbidden, and have someone push him around on Shabbos with his. Huh? No, well, you can push a wheelchair on Shabbos. It's now, or I'm actually not sure if a Jew can. A Gentile could. In New York, you see a lot of the older Jews in their 80s and 90s have like a Gentile push them to Shul on Shabbos.
Also,
I believe you're allowed to have a Jew push them around, but there's an institution in Israel. Every one of these devices, a lot of these things have so many questions in the halakha, more than we can imagine, us ourselves, because we're not so familiar with the exact technology. Are you carrying it? Is it electric? How does the system work? And so there's institutions in Israel called Zomet, Z-O-M-E-T, and their thing, they got rabbis and everything trying to make things, manufacture things which can be used on Shabbos. Okay. Now let's continue on. Okay, number 16.
One may go out wearing a linen covering. Is that the word you are?
Yeah.
Or with woolly covering worn.
No, number 16.
Yeah, 16.
That's linen covering?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay,
he's talking.
pukriyain. Okay, I'm not sure what that is. When they are dyed and
Right, that's
rolled it, or you went out before. However, if you didn't do anything with it, you can't go out on Shabbos. You can go out with a thick sack or a cloth, or different kinds of cloth because of the rain, but you can't wear a box on the rain, right? You can't wear a box. This is actually, you can't take an umbrella on Shabbos. A pillow or a cover.
Daddy, you're not even allowed to open it.
Yeah, you're not allowed to open on Shabbos. You're not allowed to open an umbrella on Shabbos as well, even if there's an eruv. A pillow or a blanket, if they're very soft, then you can go out, you can put them like a shawl on your head. But if they're hard, then it's like you're carrying them. You can go out now, there's interesting innovation in the Jewish community of raincoats on Shabbos. Because every guy, a hat could easily be $300. And if it rains on your hat, it ruins your hat. So in Crown Heights, now there's a dispute, there's these special covers for hats. But there's a dispute if you're allowed to use those covers. It's a old dispute in halacha. You're allowed to wear a hair covering. The rabbis made like an exception, a rain covering, but you can't cover your hat. You can't protect your hat. You can protect yourself. So some say, well, you're protecting yourself because the hat might soak through. But others say, no, the hats indeed, they protect your head from rain, right? So what did they do? They created these raincoats that have a huge hood that can go over your hat. And if you have that, so I remember my dad still has one. They were about $20. I always would lose them because someone would take mine, the one was too small. if you're in a Jewish community, I lived in New York with my dad in California, he has one, that he still has. And then a lot of Jewish communities in Muncie, it's very dark at night. It's in the forest. So they actually have reflective things on the shoulders of these things. They're pretty nifty. And what's nice is they're thick. If you wear a trench coat, you'll get wet eventually. These things never soak through. You are absolutely dry. Anyways, they sell them they're about $40. They sell them in the Jewish communities. Okay, so you can go out with zugin, are like scissors, which are woven into your garment, and a slave can go out with a leash. You can go out with a sign around his neck, but not with a metal one, because maybe it'll bring it. So again, if it's made out of clay, dog tag, if it's made out of clay, then it might fall and you'll carry it. If it's made out of metal, it's valuable. But if it's made out of clay, now generally speaking, I have to look it up, and the truth is I'm not fully aware today, but women wear necklaces on Shabbos, men wear dog tags on Shabbos. The Rambam was clearly very hesitant with rings and all these things. If you're wearing a talis and it's folded here and here on your hand and shoulder, if you are going to bring it up in order that it shouldn't get dirty or fall, it's forbidden. But if you're holding, so what happens is, sometimes you wear a talis. You're allowed to wear a talis on Shabbos. And let's say you're holding it like this. If you're holding it so it doesn't get dirty, it's forbidden. It's carrying. But if you're holding it because that's the way you wear it, actually it's interesting because different people have different ways they wear talis. And notably, a lot of Hungarian Jews, they actually hold their talis the whole time. Even when they're davening, they hold their talis. They don't have it on their shoulders. It's almost like their whole body is covered with it and they're holding it in the front. Okay. If you are, go out with a talis which is folded and it's on your shoulder. So let's say before you put a talis on, you're meant to put it on your shoulder and check the strings. So let's say you're walking with that. Then you're liable. But if you have a handkerchief on your shoulders, even though it's not connected to you, and it's not connected to your hand, and similarly, like I guess it's a scarf, which it's not on most of you, then you can't go out. If it's okay, so now you can't go out with a scarf on Shabbos. I remember when I was a kid, there was an old guy, and the old Jews in America, they had certain styles of living. Orthodox Jew, he used to tie he always had a handkerchief tied around his neck to blow his nose. We don't do that nowadays. We rely on tissues. He always had a handkerchief tied around his neck on Shabbos because he didn't want to carry it. He wanted to have it with it, and he couldn't put it in his pocket. So anyways, okay. So if you go out, if it's short, some type of handkerchief and it's short and it's not wide, you can tie it between your shoulders and it's like a belt. So here's just another interesting tidbit law. Eventually one day, now a women's mikvah is very important because women, it's forbidden to go one night without that you're able to, a lady cannot touch her husband unless she's, after the menstrual period, gone through 7 clean days and then gone to mikvah. So women mikvah, ideally you should have a mikvah on Shabbos, and you'd be able to use it on Shabbos because it's really forbidden to wait one day, to push off mikvah one day. Unfortunately, if you don't have a mikvah, or it's not in walking distance, or a bunch of different things, you have to push it off to Saturday night, right? You can't go on Friday night. But there are a bunch of things in place to make sure she does the mikvah properly on Friday night. And in a regular Jewish community, a lady should be able to go Friday night. Men go to mikvah every day. Now, the difference between men's mikvah and women's mikvah is men's mikvah is only a custom. It's a real custom. Women's mikvah is like a biblical mitzvah, which has death penalty tied to it, but men like to go to mikvah Shabbos morning. Now, a lot of mikvahs don't have towels. Or if they have towels, they're not clean. People use them. And then you kind of mikvah in dirty towels. And so there's a fancy mikvah in Brooklyn. It's gone up price $5, $6 a day. I always use it when I'm there because that's what I use. It's like a spa. Beautiful mikvah. Everyone's naked. It's like a locker room. They always have perfect towels. Everything's clean. The floors are heated. But there's a lot of mikvahs in Brooklyn which are not fancy at all. And especially Shabbos morning at 9 o'clock, there's been people coming since 6 a.m., So people like to bring their towel. Now you can't carry a towel. So what could you do? You could wear the towel as a scarf. But some rabbis say you can't wear it as a scarf because it's not a scarf. What is a hot day? So you can wear it as a belt. Because if you wear it as a scarf, it's not really doing anything for you. If it's very cold, it might be and it's warm, then you can wear it. But if it's a hot day, but if you tie it around people in Brooklyn, a lot of people in the morning walking with a towel tied around their waist. Because after you go to a smelly mikvah, there's nothing you want more than a clean towel, to wipe it off. Okay. A person can wear a talis which has loose threads at the end, even though they are long, even though they're not for beauty, because you don't really care about them. You're not carrying loose threads. Therefore, if you go out with a talis which doesn't have it, you're liable. Which doesn't have tzitzis, you're liable. Because these strings, so if one of your corners breaks and you have 3 strings, you got to take your talis off. Because first of all, you're doing a sin of wearing a talis which isn't kosher. But second of all, you're carrying 3 corners, which are useless. Right? But a talis, which is done properly, you can go out whether morning and night. Now, a night is not, a morning is not a mitzvah to wear a talis, so maybe you can't wear a talis at night. So let's say you're going to go walk somewhere, and you're going to be there the next morning. So you left your talis somewhere. So you're allowed to wear it at night, because even though you're not doing the mitzvah, it's considered a full garment. And the strings of tzitzis, which are done properly, and if you'd be liable even on the day of Shabbos, because you have a mitzvah. If they were considered carrying, you couldn't wear them during the day. A tailor cannot go on Shabbos. Let's say you have a tailor and he always keeps tailors. They would always keep needles in their clothing. They don't lose the needle. He cannot go out on Shabbos. A nagar, a carpenter, cannot go out with a peg in his ear and not with some kind of string in his ear. All these different things they use the tools, and to go they're exempt, even though. So they always wear these things. They say, "Hey, I'm always wearing this," because it's for their job. They shouldn't go out. A zav is somebody who had an admission, became impure. He went out with his wallet. He's chayav because it's not. Is that his wallet? Number 22.
A zav, one who suffers from abnormal seminal secretions. Is that right?
Yeah.
Who went out with his pouch to avoid becoming soiled is liable, for the way of carrying this pouch is only in this manner, even though he does not need the labor of carrying it himself.
All right, so I don't know exactly what this is. It's some kind of pouch that he makes sure he doesn't get dirty. That is forbidden. He's chayiv on it. If you take tefillin on Shabbos, what should you do? You have tefillin and you're in public domain. So this could be either you're walking with tefillin, put them on right before Shabbos, you didn't get a chance to do it, or you find tefillin in the street. You put them on, and you put the head on the head and the hand on the hand, and you go and you take it out in the house. And then you go take the second pair until you bring all of them in. And if there's many and you won't be able to get them all wearing them, then what you could do is you wait by them and bring them in after Shabbos. And if it's in the times of decrees that if people weren't allowed to have them and to be punished and everything like that, and you'll be beaten up if you do that, then you should cover them and put them on and go. If you're worried that people are going to steal them, take them all once and you go less than 4 amos at a time. Or you give it to your friend and he gives it to his friend until you make it there. When do we say this? If they have ritzuas, and you can. Now, here's the problem. The problem is you can take them 4 right? But you can't bring them indoors. Right? You can't bring them indoors. Right? So, what do? I pass them to you, and you bring them until you get to the door, and then we put them on at the door. That's the only. If it doesn't have straps, you have to wait by them. If you take out if you find a Torah, you just wait there the whole Shabbos. So it's interesting. The Rambam is demanding that you don't eat anything the whole Shabbos. You don't do anything the whole Shabbos. You just sit with the Torah. You see a Torah outside, and if there's a danger, if it's raining, so then you can pass them to someone else, or you cover them with leather. And okay, a person should not go erev Shabbos, a chayet, a tailor with his tools, or a writer with his pen. Erev Shabbos, maybe he'll forget and he'll carry them. A person has to check his clothing before Shabbos. Maybe he has something that he forgot and he'll go out on Shabbos. You can go out with tefillin erev Shabbos at night, because since you're not going to forget to take your tefillin off. If you forget and you went, then you should cover them until. So ideally, if you're wearing your tefillin outside, you should cover them. You're allowed to wear them. You should cover them in order that because you're not supposed to wear tefillin at that time. It's the wrong time to wear tefillin. Now, there's just a few interesting points. I have a friend, Paul. You remember a couple years ago, a guy told me he wanted to buy one of the most expensive things in the show is buying the opening of the Ark for Kol Nidre. So you remember a couple years ago, a guy bought it for me. A friend of mine called me up. He was in a show where they sell it for $100,000, and he said, "I want to buy it." He said, "How much does it cost?" I said, "I have no idea. I never sold it before." He said, "What would you sell it for?" I said, "I didn't know where to start. $500." So he gave me $3,600. Remember that? Okay, so that's a friend of mine. So his dad is a legendary philanthropist, and he's a very, very big businessman, always flying around the world. He's a diamond dealer or something like that. So he one time was in a hotel for Shabbos, stuck in a hotel for Shabbos, and he used the bathroom. And while he's using the urinal, he realizes that it's an automatic toilet.
Oh boy.
So he can't move. Now this is a guy, he's a world-class businessman. Politicians, everything like that. Amongst Chabads, he goes to India and this and that. They love him because he always goes and gives a big donation, and he's an incredibly warm, friendly guy. This is my friend's dad. So he's stuck there. So he's standing there. People are walking to the bathroom in the Hilton, or whatever it is, and he's standing at the urinal. So what he tried to do is he tried to get something that he could leave to block the sensor. So put over it, because he could get something to block the sensor, then it won't go off. So I think what happened is he tried to block the sensor, and it went off. So then he just left. So that's, I guess, technically actually what you could do. Try and block the sensor, take off your shoe or whatever it is, and then try and get something else to block the sensor after. But that's real halacha. You can't let the toilet flush. It's electric. You're going to cause it to go on. There are different loopholes. Like I was in a shul once that rented a place in a building.
How do you cook that in winter time?
still
You
don't
said
get
that the automatic toilet's okay.
All right. Well, so there might be loopholes. My son said in camp they said it's okay. There might be loopholes. Like I'll tell you, for example, when I was a kid, there was a modern Orthodox shul still there, and they rented a big room in an office building for shul. And only after many years they realized that the bathroom lights are off and has a sensor. And it's such a good sensor, after years, they didn't realize, such a good sensor that as soon as you open the door handle inside turns and the sensor goes off. So they went to the whole thing, if you're allowed to go into the bathroom on Shabbos. And they said you could go, but they said there's opinions say you shouldn't go. So some people wouldn't go to the bathroom there and some people did. Because they said, as far as we're concerned, we want the light on. We don't care if the light's off. And we don't even know that we're turning on the light. There's another example. When I was a kid, we walked home from shul and we passed by a lot of houses that have a sensor. So we try and go and, not catch the sensor. Now, if you catch the sensor, it's okay. But ideally, you shouldn't set yourself up to catch a sensor. So cameras are okay, especially for security, if there's a necessity for them. Interestingly enough, the Rebbe Rashab the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe was very against taking pictures of him. He only took one picture because he was going to make a passport to leave Russia, and they took a picture. That's the picture we have. However, and there's a painting of him. However, please don't interrupt. One time the Hasidim were doing Tashlich. This is in the early 1900s. And, these Rebbes, they had like an angelic look. There's something special about them. So a non-Jewish photographer saw this rabbi and took a picture of him. And and the Rebbe was very upset. But his son, the previous Rebbe, always said, I wish I could find that picture of my father. Yeah, I wish I could get that picture of my father. So you're not allowed to set up for pictures on Shabbos. You're not allowed you shouldn't wave to a camera. When I was in Alaska this year, so there was one rabbi somewhere, he said, hey, am I allowed to go and check the cameras for Friday night service to see if a minion came? Right? Because it's not Shabbos here, it's Shabbos there. People are there, they're davening. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm allowed to check the cameras on Shabbos to see. So these are all real laws. And, it's important to remember that on Shabbos, when you try and follow loopholes, you become desensitized.
Right.
And when you become desensitized, you can fall into anything. Because the way we are is once we do a sin once, and we're like, oh, okay, you did it once, you always end up doing it again and again and again and again, and we become desensitized. So that's why the Rambam is so strict on these laws, because he knows that if he wouldn't be so strict after a couple hundred years, everyone would be carrying outside Shabbos.
Yeah, one thing that I always think about, or not always think about, but think about is Shabbos elevators in
Yeah.
Israel.
What does Shabbos
I mean, I
elevator?
once,
What does Shabbos
I went-
elevator?
I'll tell you in a second. Yeah.
I was in Israel, well, when we lived in Baltimore, I made trips to Israel having to do with economic development. And so on one of those trips, I was there over Shabbos in Jerusalem. And the hotel has what they call a Shabbos elevator.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to Shul, and of course I was on a high floor. And people were getting on and getting off. I mean, it was accepted, but it always, and I did it, but it bothered me because still, I understand the principle behind it, but the more weight you put on it, I mean, isn't that part of the
So
problem?
Shabbos elevator is an interesting subject. So Mendel, Shabbos elevator is basically an elevator. This is what they need to do. They need to cover the buttons so no one will press buttons. And it opens up and stops on every floor. Opens up
Right.
and stops on every floor.
Programmed to stop on
Now,
every-
there is honest truth.
So it just go, but then it has to go up and down. And
Okay,
up and
so
down
now-
the whole entire
Yeah,
Shabbos.
correct. It's just going up and down the whole entire Shabbos. So there's a few issues which make better Shabbos elevators and worse Shabbos elevators, and cause certain people to say, unless you're an old guy and you can't do the stairs, you shouldn't use it. So now one problem is if you have, let's say, a Shabbos elevator, some of them in New York, and they're very lenient, they're not really kosher, or let's say someone presses the button with you and you're following. Now there's a few problems. Number one is there's a sensor in the door. So you can't have a sensor in the door. Now, if you don't have a sensor in the door, it's dangerous, right? So what some of them will do is they'll make the door stay open for just a unusual long time, which is maybe 30 seconds, but it stays open for an unusual long time.
But that could be dangerous also.
Yeah, well, so that could
Don't know
be
how long it was open.
that could be somewhat dangerous, right? Okay, number two, and the way the elevator works is the more people there are, the harder it needs to work. So that's the same thing with cars on Shabbos.
So what is it?
If a Gentile drives a Jewish person on Shabbos, by the way, it is way better than a Jew driving. If a Gentile drives. But a Jew still shouldn't get in the car because you are causing more gas to burn. Now, if you have like a Tesla, you're not. A lithium battery. But,
But you're still depleting the battery.
well, you're depleting the battery, but the battery depletes equally as fast as when there's gas though, you're
Tesla's
causing more.
better?
So now,
Tesla's
so
better?
1 second. Now the thing is, when you're sitting in the car, you're not like, oh, I'm burning gas here, right? You're not conscious. That makes it a little better. Now, a elevator. So some elevators, what they do is on Shabbos, they have them built in a way that they're always pulling maximum weight. So there are ones which are Shabbos elevators. There are ones which are more kosher, less kosher.
What if,
And
What if there's
they'll
like a big
there are
weight
peop-
on it?
there are people
And it
who
goes
there are
like
people
up
who
and
there are
down.
people who
And
there are
you-
people who will use won't use them unless they need to. Like hospitals all have Shabbos elevators in Israel and stuff like that. But yeah, the Shabbos elevators does have different degrees of kashrus.
So, that's always been something that I've kind of fought with because I have to drive to get here on Shabbos. I can't walk.
Yeah, well, eventually
We
maybe
say-
you find a
we
way to
say.
walk somewhere.
we say maybe one Shabbos you could keep. You
Yeah.
You
Don't
could stay
take
very
this
close to
personally. Don't take the, I don't mean any offense, but I had this same problem once. And the rabbi who I was discussing it with, he said the following: if it's important enough for you, then you have to arrange your life so you can do it. And we were discussing this very subject of driving. And what did that mean? We had to sell our house and move.
Right.
So I don't mean any offense.
Well, Mendel brought a really good point, David. He
Keep
said,
one Shabbos over here
don't
in
you
downtown.
know a lot of times you know you make a big jump. I need to do this. I need to do that. But what you could do is
Keep one
one
Shabbos
Shabbos
in
once in a
Airbnb.
while.
Stay in a
You could
hotel.
stay like an Airbnb for Shabbos, and you know one Shabbos once in a while, stay in a hotel for Shabbos. Actually, when we moved to this area, one of the reasons I went to this area is I figured I'm never gonna be able to get a place where people walk to shul because it's like most neighborhoods here, the houses are very spaced out, they're very hilly. But I said if I move to downtown, people can stay in an Airbnb for Shabbos once in a while, could stay in a hotel for Shabbos. One time a year, one time a year, just like you're doing, just like your sister, actually your
Right.
sister-in-law does.
Right, so we're gonna be staying in
Yeah.
a hotel right across the street.
So here also, it's like once in a while you can eat meals here, maybe at Paul's house, my sister's house. I mean,
Yeah.
Julie Kirker hasn't come in a while. She's a long walk. She's a 30-minute walk, but her husband got a little sick this year. But or you can make your own food and everything. But it's a
We
mitzvah.
have an Airbnb across the
Yeah,
street.
there's an Airbnb right across the street. If you can't walk, literally across the street, like literally. My parents actually are coming for a shana. They rented that, and my father-in-law is coming for Simchas Torah. He rented it, and they give me a 50% discount.
For anybody that knows
50%
about-
discount under Chabad. So
So you
50%
could
discount
go.
is talking like $70 a night, which is pretty good price, and it's a beautiful
Wait.
Airbnb.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could come
When
and-
we first came, not when we first came here, but not long after we moved here, and I was coming every week and driving, Mendel would stand at the curb.
Like you should never undervalue keeping a Shabbos once in a while
So
fully.
what I'd say to you is, over Labor Day weekend, we're gonna be gone. The rabbi has a key to our house up the street. You're welcome to use it.
Maybe I would also stay there.
Thank
Come to
I'm
shul.
serious.
I-
When we're not here, I mean, was it 2 years ago for Sukkot?
Last year.
Last year, we were in the east for Sukkot, and Bracha's parents stayed in our house. So you're welcome to use it.
Thank you.
This coming Shabbos. Anytime.
Put decide they'll set it up.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I always give that offer to people, and people are always like, nah, I can't do it. But it's very
You could do
it's
that
probably a
this
big
week.
expense on your sister-in-law. She told me does every week.
No, she doesn't do it every week, she only does it on the high holidays.
Oh, so where does she do? Does she go to shul every week?
Then
Or
she doesn't leave the house.
she doesn't leave the house. Well, so
Or if she does, she walks wherever she's gonna go, but, the stores are way too far to walk to. It's California.
well, so
Everybody
here
drives.
across the street, there's 2 Airbnbs. One of them is a suite. It's 1,200 square feet. It's a
When I think there's
a
two
studio, and then there's 3 rooms which share a bathroom, which have a nice lobby. It's very nice. They just remodeled it, and those he'll probably give me like $30 a night, probably. And then down the street more, there's another hostel. So the difference is you have to share a bathroom. From my experience here, I go there to check out the Jewish people. There are people who specifically like Airbnbs where you can meet people. There's like social aspect.
Yeah,
There's
I've never done an Airbnb before, but when I go to Hawaii in October, I'll be doing.
And he has a
Airbnb.
back treehouse. That I don't know if you have a bad knee, I wouldn't stay in the treehouse.
Yeah.
But it's
You
really
could just
it's
stay
really
off
pretty.
The street of the suite with like ivy maybe.
And then there's also
Well,
another.
This Shabbos you can use our house. This Shabbos you can use our house.
On the side, it's
No
free.
pressure.
Yeah,
You
no
use
pressure.
it for free, I
Yeah.
know.
All right, you want to read the
could
first
eat-
Balaturim on this portion?
you
I
could
gotta
eat-
stop. Right?
David,
Oh,
you could
great.
eat the meal with
I'll
us.
see you guys. Wasn't planning on staying much more than an hour, so.
All right, well, we'll
sorry.
see you. We'll
But
see
thank
you.
you for coming.
Well, we came here both of us came here for you and Nancy.
Understood. But,
Sorry it didn't work out that way.
but it's always great to see you.
David,
All right, take care.
David, you could stay in the house for free, and then you could come and eat the meals with us. We offer you could come for the meals.
Okay.
Keep a Shabbos. Walk.
Okay. All right, see you guys.
Take care.
Tomorrow.
Kitabo, right?
Yeah, very, very, very tough verses. Yeah.
When you will enter, the previous verse states, Zecher Amalek, you shall wipe out the memory of Amalek And juxtaposed to that is V'haya ki tavo el haaretz. It will be when you enter the land. The juxtaposition indicates that they were commanded to wipe out the memory of Amalek immediately upon their entry into the land. For this reason, the descendants of Amalek wanted to prevent the Israelites' entry into the land, for Amalek is the one who told the king of Egypt that the people had fled and